Daddy, please, please don't leave me. Not today, not like this. Elena Mitchell pressed her trembling hands against her father's chest, feeling his heartbeat fade beneath her fingers. The monitors screamed their warning, but she refused to let go. She couldn't let go. Not yet. Not ever. Baby girl. He whispered, his voice barely a breath. Open the box. Trust the plan. You are never alone. 24 hours later, Elena stood frozen in a courthouse hallway, 6 months pregnant. Her father's funeral dirt still under her fingernails, watching her husband Derek slide a wedding ring onto another woman's finger. Sophia Hartley. The woman who had whispered finally when Elena's father flatlined. What Derek didn't know as he kissed his new bride, what Sophia couldn't possibly imagine as she smiled in triumph, was that the humble janitor they had dismissed as worthless had been hiding a fortune worth $5.8 billion, and every single penny now belonged to the pregnant woman they had just destroyed. If this story moves you, subscribe now and follow Elena's journey to the very end. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Because what happens next will change everything you believe about karma, love, and the power of a father's protection. The phone rang at 3:47 in the morning. Elena Mitchell had been dreaming about her father teaching her to ride a bicycle, his strong hands steady on the back of her seat, his voice calm and sure. I've got you, baby girl. I've always got you. The shrill ring shattered everything. She fumbled in the darkness, her pregnant belly making every movement clumsy and slow. Her fingers finally found the phone. Mrs. Mitchell. The voice was professional. Rehearsed, the kind of calm that comes from delivering terrible news too many times. This is Nurse Patricia at St. Mary's Medical Center. Your father's condition has deteriorated significantly. Dr. Harrison is recommending you come immediately. Elena was already throwing off the covers. How bad? A pause. That pause told her everything. Please hurry, Mrs. Mitchell. Derek groaned beside her, pulling the pillow over his head. What time is it? I have to go. It's my dad. Again. He didn't even open his eyes. Elena, I have the Morrison presentation at 9. I need sleep. She stared at him in the darkness. Her father was dying, and Derek needed sleep. I'll call you from the hospital. Don't bother. I'll have my phone off during the presentation. Just text me if anything happens. If anything happens. Like her father's death was a calendar notification, a minor inconvenience in Derek's busy schedule. Elena grabbed her coat and ran. The drive to St. Mary's took 17 minutes on a normal day. Elena made it in 9, running every light. Her hands shaking so badly she could barely grip the steering wheel. She prayed out loud, something she hadn't done since childhood. Please, please let me get there in time. Please don't take him yet. I'm not ready. I'll never be ready. She burst through the emergency entrance and nearly collided with a nurse. William Thornton, room 412. Is he still? The nurse's face softened with recognition. He's still with us, honey. He's been fighting hard. Kept telling us he couldn't go until he saw his baby girl one more time. Elena ran for the elevator. The 4th floor smelled like disinfectant and something else. Something final. She had spent so many nights here over the past 12 weeks that the nurses knew her by name. Knew how she took her coffee. Knew that she always sat in the same plastic chair on the left side of her father's bed. She pushed open the door to room 412 and her knees nearly buckled. Her father looked like a ghost. William Thornton, the man who had seemed larger than life for all of Elena's 32 years, lay beneath white hospital sheets, his dark skin ashen, his strong hands now thin and fragile. The machines beeped their steady rhythm, measuring out his final moments in sounds and numbers that kept getting slower. Daddy? His eyes fluttered open. Despite everything, despite the cancer eating him from the inside out, despite the morphine dulling his senses, his eyes were still sharp. Still her daddy's eyes. Baby girl. His voice was like sandpaper. You came. Of course I came. She rushed to his side, grabbed his hand, pressed it against her cheek. I'll always come. always. He smiled just slightly and reached up to touch her face. Let me look at you, my beautiful girl, so much like your mama. Elena felt tears streaming down her face. She didn't bother wiping them away. Where's Derek? William asked. The question hit her like a punch. He had an early meeting. He wanted to come, but... Don't lie to me, baby girl. William's voice was gentle but firm. Not now. Not when we don't have much time left. Don't waste our last words on lies about that man. Elena's breath caught. Daddy? I know. He squeezed her hand with surprising strength. I've known for a while now. About who he really is. About what he's planning. What are you talking about? A nurse appeared in the doorway. Young, kind-eyed, her name tag reading, Maria. Mr. Thornton, your vitals are spiking. You need to stay calm. Maria, sweetheart, I'm dying. William's voice carried no self-pity, only fact. My vitals are going to do whatever they want. Right now, I need to talk to my daughter. Please. Maria hesitated, looked at Elena, then nodded. I'll be right outside. Call if you need anything. The door closed softly behind her. William turned back to Elena, and his eyes were fierce with urgency. Listen to me carefully, baby girl. I don't have much time, and there are things you need to know, things I should have told you years ago. Daddy, you're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. Not of dying, not of losing me. You should be scared of what's coming after. But more importantly, you should know that I've protected you. I've made sure you'll be okay. What do you mean protected me from what? From Derek. William's jaw tightened. From the man who came to visit me 3 weeks ago while you were at work. Elena felt the floor tilt beneath her. Derek came here? He told me he couldn't get away from the office. He said he was too busy with clients. He lied. William's voice was bitter. He sat right there, right where you're sitting now, and he asked me about money. Wanted to know if I had life insurance, how much my hospital bills were costing, asked if I had any savings that could help offset the burden. The burden. What burden? You, baby girl. You and my granddaughter. That's how he sees you now. As a burden. Elena shook her head violently. No, Derek loves me. We're having a baby together. He sat in that chair and told me the pregnancy was bad timing. Said you were emotional and distracted. Said he was under a lot of pressure at work and he needed to focus on his career without all these family obligations weighing him down. Every word was a knife. Then he asked me how much longer the doctors thought I had. Asked it like he was checking on a delivery date, like he was counting down the days until I'd be gone and he could make his move. What move, Daddy? What are you saying? William's grip on her hand tightened. He's going to leave you, Elena. He's going to walk out the door and never look back, and he's going to do it soon, probably as soon as I'm gone. That's not true. You don't know that. I know men like him. William's eyes were ancient with wisdom and pain. I've seen that look before. The look of a man calculating his exit, figuring out the cheapest way to leave. And there's something else. Elena was crying now, tears dripping onto her father's hospital gown. What else could there possibly be? He's not alone in this. There's someone else, another woman. I don't know who she is, but I saw the way his phone kept buzzing while he was here. Saw the way he smiled at those messages when he thought I wasn't looking. That's not a work smile, baby girl. That's the smile of a man who's already moved on. Stop it. Elena pulled her hand away. Stop it, Daddy. You're wrong. You have to be wrong. I wish I was. William's voice cracked. I wish more than anything that I was wrong. But I'm not. And I need you to be prepared for what's coming. Prepared how? What am I supposed to do? You're supposed to survive. William reached for her hand again. You're supposed to take what I'm leaving you and build a life so beautiful, so powerful, so full of meaning that Derek spends the rest of his days choking on regret. What you're leaving me, Daddy, you live in a one-bedroom apartment. You drive a car held together with duct tape. You're a janitor. Am I? The question hung in the air between them. Elena stared at her father. What does that mean? In my apartment, bedroom closet. There's an old Nike shoebox, the one from your first pair of basketball shoes. Remember, you were 12. You made the team and I worked overtime for 3 months to buy you those shoes. Elena nodded, not trusting her voice. False bottom. There's a key inside. Safety deposit box at First Federal Bank of Chicago. Box number 1247. Everything you need is there. Everything I should have told you years ago. I don't understand. You will. William's breathing was getting more labored. But you have to promise me something first. Promise you'll go to that bank. Promise you'll read everything before you make any decisions about your future. I promise. Promise you won't tell anyone what you find. Not your friends, not your coworkers. Okay? And promise me you won't tell Derek. William's voice hardened like steel. No matter what happens, no matter what he says, no matter how much he begs, you never tell that man what's in that box. Daddy, why? What's in the box? Your future. William smiled, and for a moment he looked like the strong, invincible father Elena had always known. Your freedom, your power, everything I've been saving for you since the day you were born. I don't understand any of this. You will. He reached up and touched her face. But first, I need to tell you something about who I really am, about who you really are. Elena's heart was pounding. What do you mean, who you really are? My name isn't William Thornton. The world stopped. What? I changed it. 35 years ago, the day I married your mother. Why would you change your name? William's eyes grew distant, looking at something Elena couldn't see. Because my family gave me a choice. The hardest choice anyone has ever asked me to make. They told me I could have your mother or I could have my inheritance. But not both. Your inheritance. Daddy, what are you talking about? You're a janitor. I wasn't always. He smiled sadly. Baby girl, I need you to listen to me very carefully. What I'm about to tell you is going to change everything you think you know about our life together. Tell me. My real name is William Hartwell III. Elena stopped breathing. Hartwell. The Hartwells. Everyone in Chicago knew that name. Hartwell Industries. Hartwell Tower downtown. The Hartwell Foundation that funded half the charities in the city. One of the wealthiest families in America. That's not possible, she whispered. I was supposed to take over the company. I was supposed to be the third generation of Hartwells to run the empire my grandfather built. I went to the best schools. I had the finest education. I was groomed from birth to be a titan of industry. But you're a janitor. You mop floors at an elementary school. I do. William smiled. And it's the most honest work I've ever done. I don't understand. When I was 25 years old, I went to a charity gala at the Palmer House. Black tie affair. Hundreds of Chicago's wealthiest people there to feel good about writing checks. I was bored out of my mind. And then I saw her. My mother. Your mother. William's eyes lit up with a love that 35 years hadn't dimmed. Grace Elizabeth Monroe. She was working the event serving champagne to people who never even looked at her face. But I looked. I couldn't stop looking. She was the most beautiful woman I had ever seen. What happened? I introduced myself. I told her my name. And she laughed at me. She laughed. She said, I know who you are, Mr. Hartwell, and I'm not interested in being your charity case or your entertainment for the evening. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do. And she walked away. Elena smiled despite her tears. That sounds like something you would tell me, she'd say. She was fire, your mother. Pure fire. It took me 3 months to convince her to have coffee with me. Another 4 months before she agreed to dinner. and a full year before she admitted that she loved me. Why so long? Because she knew what it would mean. She knew my family would never accept her. She was a working-class woman from the South Side. Her father was a bus driver. Her mother cleaned houses. She didn't have a trust fund or a society name or the right pedigree. And she knew that loving me would mean war. War with who? My mother. William's voice darkened. Eleanor Hartwell, the most vicious woman I have ever known. When she found out about Grace, she had her investigated, hired private detectives, tried to find any dirt she could use to drive us apart. Did she find anything? Your mother was spotless, not a single skeleton in her closet. So my mother tried a different approach. She tried to buy her off, offered Grace $2 million to disappear and never contact me again. $2 million. Your mother turned it down without a moment's hesitation. Told my mother that I wasn't for sale and neither was she. That's when I knew I was going to marry her. What did your family do? They gave me the ultimatum. My father called me into his office and told me I had a choice. I could end things with Grace and fulfill my destiny as a Hartwell, or I could marry her and lose everything. The company, the inheritance, the family name. I would be cut off, completely disowned, treated as if I had never existed. And you chose her. I chose her without a second thought. William's eyes were shining with tears. I chose love, baby girl. Real love. The kind of love that doesn't care about money or status or what the world thinks. I walked out of my father's office that day and I never went back. So you just gave it all up? All those billions of dollars? I thought I did. William smiled mysteriously. But here's the thing about being a Hartwell. We're very good at long-term planning. What does that mean? My grandfather, William Hartwell I, he loved me. Truly loved me. Not like my parents who loved what I represented, what I could do for the family legacy. Grandfather loved me for who I was. And when he heard what my parents had done, how they had tried to force me to choose between love and money, he was furious. What did he do? He changed his will, secretly, without telling anyone. He put a third of the entire Hartwell fortune into an irrevocable trust in my name, to be managed by a separate law firm completely independent of my parents' control. Elena's head was spinning. How much is a third of the Hartwell fortune? At the time, about $400 million. $400 million. But here's the thing about money, baby girl. If you invest it wisely and let it grow for 35 years, it becomes something much, much larger. Elena's hands were shaking. How much larger? The last statement I received was about 6 months ago, before I got sick. At that point, the trust was valued at approximately $5.8 billion. The room spun. Elena grabbed the bed rail to keep from falling. Billion. Billion. William nodded. With a B. But we live in a tiny apartment. You clip coupons. You wear the same work boots until they fall apart. You eat ramen for dinner. Because I wanted to, baby girl. Because that's the life I chose. William squeezed her hand. I didn't want my money to raise you. I wanted to raise you myself. I wanted you to know what it means to work hard, to be humble, to value people over possessions. I wanted you to grow up normal, to marry someone who loved you for you, not for your bank account. Does anyone know about this? My cousin Richard. He's an attorney. He's been managing the trust all these years. His firm Hartwell and Associates handles everything. And now you know. Why now? Why tell me now? William's breathing was getting shallower. The monitors were beeping faster. Because I'm dying, baby girl. And I needed to make sure you were protected. 3 weeks ago, after Derek came to visit me, after I saw who he really was, I called Richard. I had him restructure everything. Put it all in your name. Created an ironclad, irrevocable trust that Derek can never touch. Not even a penny. Not even if you were still married when I died. You did that 3 weeks ago. You knew Derek was going to leave me 3 weeks ago. I knew. William's eyes were filled with sorrow. I saw it in his eyes. The same look my parents had when they looked at your mother. The look of someone who's already decided you're not worth the trouble. Why didn't you warn me? Because you weren't ready to hear it. And because I needed time to make sure everything was in place. To make sure that when he walked out, when he thought he was escaping poverty for something better, you would be the one with the power. You would be the one with the choice. You would be the one who was free. Elena was sobbing now. Daddy, I don't want your money. I just want you. I want you to stay. Please stay. I can't, baby girl. William's hand trembled as he wiped her tears. But I need you to hear me. I need you to understand what I'm telling you. I'm listening. When Derek leaves, and he will leave probably within days of my funeral, I need you to let him go. Don't beg. Don't plead. Don't fight for a man who was never worth fighting for. How can you be so sure he'll leave? Because I know. William's voice was fading. I know things about him that even you don't know. Things that will come out very soon. And when they do, when you see the truth, I need you to remember that you are not losing anything. He is. He's losing the greatest treasure he could ever have, and he's too stupid to even know it. The door opened, and Nurse Maria rushed in. Mr. Thornton, your heart rate is critical. I need to call Dr. Harrison. Call whoever you want. William didn't take his eyes off Elena. But give me 5 more minutes with my daughter, please. Maria hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes, then I have to intervene. She stepped back but didn't leave the room. William turned back to Elena. There's a letter in the safety deposit box. It explains everything. The accounts, the properties, the investments, Richard's contact information. Everything you need to step into your inheritance. I don't care about inheritance. I care about you. And I care about you. That's why I did all of this. He pulled her closer. But there's one more thing I need you to promise me. Anything. When you rise, and you will rise, baby girl, don't do it for revenge. Don't do it to hurt Derek or to prove anything to anyone. Do it because that's who you are. Do it because you're a Hartwell and a Thornton and a child of Grace Monroe, and you carry all of our strength inside you. I don't feel strong right now. You will. His grip on her hand was weakening. You will feel strong again. And when you do, I want you to build something beautiful, something that helps people, something that honors the values I tried to teach you all these years. Values like what? Like character matters more than cash, like love is worth more than luxury, like a good heart is the only treasure that truly counts. The monitors screamed. Maria rushed forward. I'm calling Dr. Harrison. We need to stabilize him. No. William's voice was surprisingly firm. No more machines. No more interventions. Just my daughter. Maria looked at Elena helplessly. Elena nodded through her tears. It's what he wants, Elena whispered. It's what he's always wanted. To go peacefully. With dignity. Maria stepped back, her own eyes glistening. William looked at Elena one last time. Your mother's name was Grace. Name my granddaughter after her. Tell her about us. Tell her that love is the only thing that lasts. I will. I promise I will. And one more thing. His voice was barely audible now. You are never alone. You are never poor. You are never powerless. I made sure of that. Daddy, please. I love you, baby girl. More than all the billions in the world. More than anything I ever had or gave up or could ever imagine. You are my greatest treasure. You always have been. His hand went slack in hers. The monitors flatlined, and Elena's scream echoed through the hospital corridor like the sound of a heart breaking in two. The funeral was 3 days later. Rain poured down on Evergreen Cemetery as if the sky itself was mourning William Thornton. Elena stood at the edge of the grave, her black dress soaked through, her hand resting on her pregnant belly, clutching her father's worn janitor jacket against her chest. The preacher spoke words she couldn't hear. Something about ashes and dust and eternal peace. But all Elena could hear was her father's voice echoing in her memory. You are never alone. You are never poor. You are never powerless. There were maybe 30 people there. Teachers from Lincoln Elementary. Neighbors from the apartment building. Mrs. Chen from the front desk, who couldn't stop crying. A few distant relatives Elena barely recognized. No one from the Hartwell family. Elena had looked them up online after her father died. They were still there, still wealthy, still powerful. Their names on buildings and foundations across Chicago. They had no idea that William had been living 10 miles from Hartwell Tower for 35 years. Or maybe they knew and simply didn't care. Derek stood beside her, but he might as well have been 1,000 miles away. He held his umbrella over his own head, not hers. He checked his phone every few minutes, his jaw tight with barely concealed impatience. When the preacher said, "Dust to dust," Derek actually looked at his watch. Elena glanced at him and felt something cold settle in her chest. This was the man who had promised to love her in sickness and in health, for better or for worse, until death do them part. He couldn't even pretend to care that she had just lost the only person who had ever truly loved her. After the service, as mourners filed past offering condolences Elena would never remember, Mrs. Chen grabbed her hands and held on tight. "Your daddy was the finest man I ever knew," she said, her voice thick with grief. "Every day, every single day he talked about you, about how proud he was, about how you were his whole world." Elena couldn't speak. She just nodded. "He told me something a few weeks ago." Mrs. Chen leaned closer. "He said Helen, my baby girl, is stronger than she knows, and very soon she's going to need every bit of that strength." I didn't understand what he meant then, but I think I do now. She looked at Derek, who was standing 10 feet away, texting on his phone, and her eyes hardened. "Whatever's coming, honey, whatever you're about to face, you remember what your daddy taught you. You remember who you are. You're William Thornton's daughter. That means you've got steel in your spine and fire in your heart." She squeezed Elena's hands one last time and walked away. Derek approached his phone, already back in his pocket. "I need to head out. Got a thing with some clients." Elena stared at him. "A thing?" "Yeah, this deal has been in the works for months. I can't just blow it off because..." "Because what?" "Because we just buried my father." "That's not what I meant." His voice was impatient now. "Look, you've got people here. Mrs. Chen can drive you home. I'll see you later." "Later when?" "I don't know, Elena. Late. Don't wait up." He kissed her forehead quick and careless and walked away through the rain toward his car. He was pulling out his phone before he even reached the parking lot. Elena watched him go. And she remembered her father's words. "I see how he looks at you, like you're a burden instead of a blessing." She finally saw it too. That night, Elena went to her father's apartment instead of going home. She needed to feel close to him. She needed to understand what he had meant about the safety deposit box, about the key, about the billions of dollars that didn't seem real. She sat on his threadbare couch, wrapped in his jacket, surrounded by the humble life he had chosen. The old TV that only got 3 channels. The kitchen table scarred by decades of use. The photo of her mother on the bookshelf, forever young, forever beautiful. Her phone buzzed. "Derek." "Hey, just checking in. You okay?" She could hear music in the background. Laughter. Glasses clinking. "Where are you?" "Grabbed dinner with the team. Had to decompress after the funeral. Heavy day." Heavy day. Like he had been the one burying his father. "When are you coming home?" "Probably late. We might hit up a bar after this. You should rest, babe. You look exhausted." She looked exhausted. Her father was dead, her husband was out partying, and she looked exhausted. "I need you to come home, Derek. I need my husband." His sigh was audible through the phone. "Elena, I can't just leave. These are important clients." "More important than me? That's not fair." "My father died. I need you. Is that really too much to ask?" Silence. Then, "Look, I gotta go. Orders are coming. Take a bath or something. I'll see you tomorrow." He hung up before she could respond. Elena sat there staring at her phone, feeling something shift inside her. Something that had been cracking for months was finally starting to break. And then she saw it. A notification at the top of her screen. Derek Mitchell was tagged in a photo on Instagram. Her hands trembling. Elena opened the app. There he was, at some trendy restaurant downtown, sitting in a booth with a glass of wine in his hand. Smiling his charming smile, the one that used to make Elena's heart flutter. And next to him, pressed close, laughing at something he had said, was a woman Elena had never seen before. Beautiful. Polished. Red dress that probably cost more than Elena made in a month. Perfect makeup. Perfect hair. Perfect smile aimed directly at Elena's husband. The caption read, "Celebrating new beginnings with my favorites. Derek Mitchell at Sophia Hartley. Sophia Hartley." Elena clicked on her profile. It was public, filled with photos of expensive vacations and designer clothes and luxurious dinners. Senior Marketing Director at Maxwell and Associates. Derek's company. 3 photos down there was another picture. Derek and Sophia. His arm around her waist. Her hand on his chest. Both of them smiling like they had won the lottery. Posted 6 weeks ago. The caption, "When you know, you know." Elena's blood turned to ice. She scrolled further. More photos. Derek and Sophia at a concert. At a beach. At what looked like a hotel room carefully cropped to hide the bed. 6 weeks ago. 8 weeks ago. 3 months ago. The affair had been going on for months. While Elena was pregnant with his child. While her father was dying of cancer. While she was spending every night at the hospital praying, hoping, breaking. Derek had been falling in love with someone else. Elena ran to the bathroom and vomited until there was nothing left inside her. When she finally stopped shaking, she looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were swollen. Her face was pale. Her pregnant belly pushed against her father's oversized jacket. She looked broken. She felt broken. But then she remembered what her father had said. "When he leaves, let him go, and then rise." She remembered the safety deposit box. Box 1247. The key hidden in her old shoebox. She remembered the name her father had whispered with his dying breath. William Hartwell III, $5.8 billion. And suddenly, Elena didn't feel quite so broken anymore. She dried her tears. She straightened her shoulders. She looked at her reflection and said the words out loud. "I am never alone. I am never poor. I am never powerless." Tomorrow, she would go to the bank. Tomorrow, she would find out exactly what her father had left her. Tomorrow, she would begin to understand who she really was. But tonight, she needed to face Derek. She needed to hear him admit the truth. She needed to see his face when he destroyed her so she would never forget why she had let him go. Her phone buzzed. A text from Derek. "BTW, we need to talk when I get home tomorrow. Something important." Elena stared at those words. The words that never mean anything good. And for the first time since her father died, she didn't cry. She felt something else instead. Something cold and clear and patient. Something that had been sleeping inside her for 32 years, waiting for this moment. She typed back a single word. "Fine." Then she set down her phone, wrapped herself tighter in her father's jacket, and waited for morning. Waited for the truth. Waited for her world to shatter one more time. Because her daddy had known what was coming. He had prepared for it. He had protected her from beyond the grave. All she had to do now was trust the plan. Derek came home at 9:15 the next morning. Elena had been awake all night, sitting in the same chair, her father's jacket wrapped around her shoulders, her phone face down on the table so she wouldn't have to look at any more photos of her husband with another woman. She heard his key in the lock. She heard the door open. She heard his footsteps, confident and steady, the walk of a man who had already made up his mind about something. He found her in the kitchen. "Hey." He didn't meet her eyes. "You've been here all night." My father's apartment felt closer to him. Derek nodded, distracted. He was carrying a folder. Manila. Official looking, the kind lawyers use. Elena's heart started pounding, but she kept her face still. Her father had warned her. She had seen the Instagram photos. She knew what was coming, but knowing didn't make it hurt any less. "We need to talk," Derek said. "So you mentioned." He sat down across from her, placed the folder on the table between them, and for the first time in hours, Elena looked at her husband. Really looked at him. He was wearing cologne. Expensive stuff. The kind he never wore around her anymore. His shirt was pressed, his hair styled. He looked like he was going to a job interview, not a conversation with his grieving pregnant wife. "This isn't easy for me to say," Derek began. "Then don't say it." He blinked. "What?" "I already know Derek." Elena's voice was steady, even though her hands were shaking under the table. "I saw the photos. You and Sophia. At the restaurant, at the beach, at the hotel." The color drained from his face. "Elena, I can explain." Can you explain how you've been sleeping with your boss for 3 months while I was watching my father die? Can you explain how you were out celebrating with her last night while I was burying him? Can you explain any of that?" Derek's jaw tightened. "If you already know, then this will be easier." "Easier for who?" He slid the folder across the table. "I want a divorce." There it was. The words her father had predicted, the moment he had warned her about. Elena stared at the folder, but didn't touch it. "Now you're doing this now." "My father died 3 days ago, Derek. His grave dirt is still fresh." "I know the timing isn't ideal." "Isn't ideal?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I'm 6 months pregnant with your child. My father just died, and the timing isn't ideal. What do you want me to do? Pretend to be happy? Pretend I'm not in love with someone else?" Derek leaned forward and his eyes were cold. "I've been pretending for months, Elena. I can't do it anymore." "In love." The words tasted like poison. "You're in love with her." "Yes, I am." He said it without flinching. "Sophia understands me. She gets me. She's ambitious, successful, going places. She's the partner I need for the life I want to build." "And what am I? What was I to you?" Derek sighed like she was being tiresome. "You were my wife. You're a good person, Elena. You really are. But you're not enough. You were never going to be enough. Not for the life I want." Every word was a knife. Elena felt them sink in one by one, but she didn't let herself cry. Not in front of him. Never again in front of him. "What about the baby? What about our daughter? I'll pay child support. I'm not a monster." He pushed the folder closer. "My lawyer drew these up. It's a simple settlement. You keep the apartment. I take my stuff. We split the accounts 50-50. Clean break." "Clean break." Elena repeated the words like she was tasting something rotten. "You want to split our accounts. All $2,000 in savings. It's fair." Fair. She finally looked at him, really looked at him, and she saw exactly what her father had seen. A man calculating his exit. A man who had already moved on. A man who thought he was trading up. "When did you stop loving me, Derek? Was it when I got pregnant? Was it when my father got sick? Or were you never really in love with me at all?" Derek stood up, buttoning his jacket. "I don't want to fight about this. Just sign the papers. My lawyer will be in touch about the details. I'll come by this weekend to get my stuff." "Where are you going now?" "I'm staying with Sophia. We're getting a place together downtown. A condo in River North. She's been promoted to VP." "Of course she has." Derek paused at the door. "For what it's worth, I hope you find happiness, Elena. I really do. You deserve someone who wants the same things you want. That person just isn't me." Derek. He turned back. When did you visit my father in the hospital 3 weeks ago? What exactly did you say to him? His face went pale. He told you about that? He told me everything. I was just checking on him, making sure he had what he needed. You asked him about life insurance. You asked him how much longer he had to live. You asked him about money. Derek's mask slipped for just a moment, and Elena saw something ugly underneath. Guilt, maybe, or just annoyance at being caught. Your father was dying. Someone had to think about the practical stuff. You were too emotional to handle it. Too emotional. Elena stood up slowly, her hand on her pregnant belly. My father was dying and I was too emotional. What exactly should I have been? Derek. Calculating like you already planning my next move before his heart stopped beating. I'm not going to stand here and be attacked. Then leave. You're good at that. Derek's eyes flashed. Sign the papers, Elena. Don't make this harder than it has to be. You have nothing. No family now. No money. No prospects. Sophia's already connected me with people who can help my career. What do you have? A part-time receptionist job and a dead father who mopped floors for a living. The cruelty of it stole her breath. But Elena didn't flinch. Is that all he was to you? A janitor? That's all he was, period. A janitor who lived in a one-bedroom apartment and drove a car that should have been junked 10 years ago. I'm sorry he's dead, Elena. I really am. But let's not pretend he was anything special. Get out! Excuse me? Get out of my father's apartment. Get out of my life. Get out. Derek smiled, thin and mean. Gladly. I'll send movers for my stuff. And Elena, don't try to make this difficult. You can't afford a lawyer and I can. Just sign the papers and let me go. He walked out without looking back. Elena stood there for a long moment, listening to his footsteps fade down the hallway. Listening to the elevator doors open and close, listening to the silence he left behind. Then she picked up the divorce papers and looked at them. Simple settlement, fair division, clean break. Derek thought she had nothing. He thought she was poor, powerless alone. He had no idea. Elena set the papers down and walked to her father's bedroom closet. She pushed aside the old coats and worn shirts until she found it. The Nike shoebox from her first pair of basketball shoes. The ones her father had worked overtime for 3 months to buy. She opened the box. False bottom, just like he said. Inside was a single key and a note in her father's handwriting. First Federal Bank, Box 1247. Trust the plan, baby girl. Elena clutched the key in her fist and felt something shift inside her. Something cold and patient and fierce. Derek wanted a divorce. He would get one, but not the way he expected. Elena drove to First Federal Bank of Chicago at exactly 10 o'clock. The building was massive, imposing all marble floors and vaulted ceilings, and the kind of hushed silence that money buys. She walked up to the information desk, still wearing yesterday's black dress, her father's jacket over her shoulders, her eyes red from crying. She looked like exactly what she was, a grieving pregnant woman who had been awake for 2 days straight. The receptionist looked at her with barely concealed disdain. Can I help you? I need to access safety deposit box 1247. The woman's fingers moved across her keyboard. Then they stopped. Her eyes widened. She looked up at Elena with an entirely different expression. One moment, please. I need to get the branch manager. Elena waited. She watched the receptionist make a phone call, speaking in hushed, urgent tones. Within 2 minutes, a man in an expensive suit appeared. Gray hair. Distinguished. The kind of person who usually didn't deal with walk-in customers. Miss Richardson. He approached her carefully like she was someone important. Mitchell. Elena Mitchell. Of course. I'm Gerald Whitmore, branch manager. He extended his hand, and Elena noticed it was trembling slightly. We've been expecting you. Please follow me. Expecting her. Gerald led her past the main floor down a hallway lined with portraits of serious-looking men in suits to a private room with thick doors and no windows. "Please have a seat. Can I get you anything? Water, coffee, tea?" "I just want to see what's in the box." Gerald nodded and produced 2 keys. He inserted one, Elena inserted hers, and the box clicked open. Inside was a large envelope and several smaller ones. Elena's hands shook as she opened the main envelope. The first thing she saw was a letter in her father's handwriting. "My dearest Elena, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And I'm sorry. Sorry I'm not there to hold you while you process this. Sorry I couldn't tell you sooner. Sorry for all the years of secrets. But I'm not sorry for the life I gave you. And I'm not sorry for what I'm leaving behind. By now Derek has probably shown you who he really is. I knew it would happen. I saw it coming from a mile away. Men like him always reveal themselves eventually. But here's what he doesn't know. Here's what nobody knows except you and the lawyers. You are not the daughter of a janitor. You are the granddaughter of William Hartwell, founder of Hartwell Industries. You are the sole heir to the Thornton Hartwell Family Trust. And as of my death, you are worth approximately $5.8 billion. Read the documents. Call Richard. He's your cousin, and he's been waiting for this day. And baby girl. When Derek realizes what he's lost, when he comes crawling back begging for another chance. Remember what he said about your father. Remember that he called me nothing special. Remember that he left you when he thought you were poor. Then let him choke on his regret. I love you. Forever. Daddy. Elena's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the papers. She set down the letter and picked up the documents beneath it. Stock certificates. Property deeds. Bank statements with numbers that seemed impossible. Hartwell Industries. 12.4% controlling shares. Real estate holdings in 12 states. Investment portfolios managed by Goldman Sachs. A number at the bottom of the summary page. Total estimated value, $5, $847,000. $5,847,000,000. Elena couldn't breathe. Gerald Whitmore was watching her carefully. Is everything in order, Miss Mitchell? How is this possible? Her voice didn't sound like her own. My father was a janitor. He lived in a one-bedroom apartment. He clipped coupons. Your father was William Hartwell III. Gerald's voice was respectful. He walked away from his family's fortune 35 years ago, but he never gave up his inheritance. He simply chose not to use it. The trust has been growing ever since. And nobody knew. Only the attorneys. And now you. Gerald slid a business card across the table. Your father's cousin, Richard Thornton, has been the managing trustee. He asked me to give you this when you came. He's waiting for your call. Elena stared at the card. Hartwell and Associates. The same name as her father's real family. There's one more thing. Gerald placed another document in front of her. 3 weeks ago, your father called us. He restructured the entire trust. Everything is now in your name, in an irrevocable structure that cannot be touched by anyone else, including any spouse, or any ex-spouse. Elena looked up sharply. He knew. About Derek. Your father was a very perceptive man. He wanted to make sure you were protected, no matter what happened. Elena sat there for a long moment staring at the papers that had just changed her entire life. Derek had called her father nothing special. Derek had said she had nothing. Derek had told her she would never be enough. And all this time her father had been quietly, patiently, lovingly building a fortress around her future, protecting her from beyond the grave. I need to make a phone call, Elena said. Gerald nodded and quietly excused himself. Elena dialed the number on the business card. It rang twice. Hartwell and Associates. How may I direct your call? This is Elena Mitchell. I need to speak with Richard Thornton. A pause. 1 moment, please. 30 seconds later, a man's voice came on the line. Warm. Professional. With an undertone of emotion. Elena. I've been waiting for this call for 15 years. You're my cousin? Your father's nephew. My father was William's younger brother, but Uncle Will was more like a father to me than my own dad ever was. Richard's voice cracked slightly. I'm so sorry for your loss. He was the best man I ever knew. He never told me about any of this, about the money, about the family, about you. He wanted to protect you. He wanted you to grow up normal, to know your own worth without a number attached to it. He used to call me every month to check on the trust, and every month he'd say the same thing. Richard, my baby girl doesn't need money. She needs love. She needs to know who she is without all this. And then he'd ask about the investments. Elena laughed, a broken sound that was half sob. That sounds like him. We need to meet. There's a lot to go over, a lot of decisions to be made. But Elena, I want you to know something first. What? Your father loved you more than anything in this world. More than the money. More than the family name. More than anything he gave up. He talked about you constantly. Your grades. Your first job. Your wedding. Richard paused. He called me the night Derek proposed. He said he had a bad feeling. Said there was something in Derek's eyes he didn't trust. He was right. I know. He called me 3 weeks ago from the hospital. He was so weak he could barely speak, but he was absolutely clear about what he wanted. He said, Richard, I need you to bulletproof everything. Make sure Derek can never touch a penny. My girl is going to need every bit of this when he shows his true colors. Elena was crying now, tears streaming down her face. He knew. He knew everything. He always knew. He was the smartest man I ever met. Richard's voice softened. Can you come to my office this afternoon? There's paperwork to sign, accounts to transfer. And I'd really like to meet you in person. After all, you're the only family I have left. Elena wiped her eyes. I'll be there. And Elena, I know you're probably in shock right now. I know this is a lot to process. But I want you to hear this. You're not alone anymore. You have family. You have resources. And whatever you decide to do with all of this, I'll be right beside you. Thank you, Richard. Thank Uncle Will. He planned everything. Elena hung up and sat alone in that silent room for a long time. $5 billion. Her father had been worth $5 billion, and he had chosen to mop floors and clip coupons and eat ramen for dinner. Not because he had to. Because he wanted to. Because he believed that character mattered more than cash. That love was worth more than luxury. That a good heart was the only treasure that truly counted. And now, all of that was hers. Not just the money. The responsibility. The legacy. The choice of what to do with all of it. Elena gathered the papers, placed them carefully back in the envelope, and stood up. Gerald Whitmore was waiting outside. Is there anything else you need, Miss Mitchell? Actually, yes. Elena's voice was steady now. Calm. Certain. I need you to do something for me. Anything. My husband served me divorce papers this morning. He thinks I'm poor. He thinks I have nothing. She met Gerald's eyes. I want to sign those papers today. I want this divorce finalized as quickly as possible. But I don't want him to know anything about my inheritance. Not yet. Can you help me with that? Gerald smiled, the first real smile she had seen from him. Your father asked me the same question 3 weeks ago. He said you would want to do this exactly this way. What did he say? He said, when Elena finds out the truth, she's going to want to let Derek go quietly. She's not going to fight him. She's not going to beg. She's going to sign those papers with a smile on her face. And then she's going to watch him realize what he lost. That's my girl. Elena felt her father's presence then stronger than it had been since he died, like he was standing right beside her, his hand on her shoulder, whispering in her ear. Trust the plan, baby girl. She trusted it. Richard Thornton's office was on the 47th floor of a building in the Loop, floor-to-ceiling windows, leather chairs, the kind of quiet that came with power. He met her at the elevator personally, tall, distinguished, kind eyes that reminded her of her father. Elena. He took both her hands in his. You look just like her, like Grace. You knew my mother. I met her once, at your parents' wedding. It was a secret ceremony. Just Uncle Will. Your mother, me, and a justice of the peace. Your mother wore a white sundress she'd bought at a thrift store. She was the most beautiful bride I've ever seen. Elena felt tears threatening again. I never knew any of this. He never told me. He was protecting you. From the family, from the money, from all the complications that come with being a Hartwell. Richard led her into his office and closed the door. Please sit. We have a lot to discuss. For the next 2 hours, Richard walked Elena through everything. The trust her great-grandfather had established. The investments her father had quietly managed for 35 years. The properties, the stocks, the accounts in banks Elena had never heard of. Your father restructured everything 3 weeks ago, Richard explained, sliding documents across his desk. The moment Derek left his hospital room, Uncle Will called me. He said, Richard, I was wrong about that boy. He's going to hurt my girl, and I need to make sure she's protected. What did he do? He put everything into an irrevocable trust with you as the sole beneficiary. It cannot be touched, altered, or accessed by anyone but you. Not even a spouse has any claim. He also added specific language that excludes any partner from inheritance rights unless you explicitly amend the trust after 10 years of marriage. So Derek can't touch any of it. Not a single penny. Even if you had still been married when your father died, the trust structure would have prevented Derek from having any claim. Your father thought of everything. Elena shook her head in wonder. He was so careful, so thorough. He was a Hartwell. We're very good at planning. Richard smiled. There's one more thing. Your father left specific instructions about what he wanted you to do with some of this money. What instructions? Richard handed her another letter. He wrote this 6 months ago, before he got sick. He said if anything ever happened to him, he wanted you to read it. Elena opened the envelope with trembling fingers. My darling Elena, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you now know the truth about who we are. I spent 35 years trying to teach you that money doesn't matter, that love is what counts, that character is the only real wealth. I still believe all of that, but I also know that money is power, and power in the right hands can change the world. You have good hands, baby girl. You have a good heart. I want you to use some of this money to help people like your mother. People who work hard and get overlooked. People who are told they're not good enough because they don't have the right name or the right pedigree. I want you to build something that would have made your mama proud. I'm not telling you what to build. That's your choice. But I know you'll make the right one. You always do. I love you forever. Daddy P.S. When Derek comes crawling back, and he will, don't be cruel, just be yourself. That will be punishment enough. Elena was crying freely now. Richard handed her a tissue and waited. He really thought of everything, she whispered. He loved you more than anything in the world. Everything he did, every choice he made was to protect you and prepare you for this moment. Elena wiped her eyes and looked at her cousin. I want to start a foundation, something to help women, single mothers, women who feel powerless and alone, women who have been told they're not enough. Richard nodded slowly. Your father already established the framework, the Grace Monroe Foundation, named after your mother. It has a $500 million endowment ready to be activated. Elena's breath caught. He knew. He knew I would want to do this. He knew you, better than anyone. Richard leaned forward. What do you want to do first? Elena thought about Derek, about the divorce papers sitting on her father's kitchen table, about Sophia Hartley with her red dress and her triumph smile. First, I want to sign those divorce papers. I want to let Derek go. And then I want to plan a dinner, a foundation launch, something elegant, something powerful. Elena's eyes hardened just slightly. And I want to make sure Derek and Sophia get invited. Richard raised an eyebrow. Your father said you would say that too. What did he say exactly? He said, when Elena rises, she's going to do it with grace. She's not going to destroy Derek. She's going to let him destroy himself. That's the Hartwell way. We don't crush our enemies. We simply become so magnificent that they choke on their own regret. Elena smiled, and for the first time since her father died, it felt real. That sounds like Daddy. It is Daddy, speaking through you. Richard stood and extended his hand. Welcome to the family, Elena. We've been waiting for you for a long time. Elena shook his hand and felt something settle inside her. Not peace exactly. Not yet. But purpose. Direction. The beginning of something new. She had lost her father. She had lost her husband. She had lost everything she thought she knew about her life. But she was about to gain something far more powerful. She was about to become exactly who she was always meant to be. That evening, Elena returned to Derek's apartment, the one they had shared for 3 years of marriage. He wasn't there. Of course he wasn't. He was with Sophia now in their new River North condo, celebrating their new life together. Elena didn't mind. She didn't want to see him. Not yet. She signed every page of the divorce papers. Simple settlement. Fair division. Clean break. Then she placed them in an envelope addressed to Derek's lawyer and set it by the front door. Her phone buzzed. A text from Derek. Did you sign? She typed back. Yes, you're free. Congratulations on the engagement. His response came immediately. How did you know about that? Instagram. You and Sophia look very happy together. A long pause. Then, thank you for being reasonable about this. For what it's worth, I hope you find happiness. Elena stared at those words. The casual cruelty of them. The assumption that he was doing her a favor. That she should be grateful. She typed back, I already have. Then she blocked his number, packed a small bag, and walked out of the apartment for the last time. She didn't look back. Her father had been right about everything. Derek had left. The divorce was done. The old life was over. But the new life was just beginning. And Elena Mitchell, daughter of William Hartwell III and Grace Monroe, was ready to rise. 3 weeks passed. Elena moved into a modest apartment near Lincoln Park. Nothing flashy. Nothing that would attract attention. She could have bought a penthouse. She could have purchased an entire building. But her father's voice echoed in her head every time she considered it. Character matters more than cash, baby girl. Never forget who you are. She didn't forget. She wouldn't forget. Richard helped her navigate the transition. Lawyers, accountants, financial advisors who spoke in numbers so large they didn't seem real. Elena listened to all of them, learned from all of them, but she made her own decisions. The Grace Monroe Foundation was officially launched with a quiet press release. $500 million dedicated to helping women in crisis. Single mothers. Domestic abuse survivors. Women who had been told they weren't enough. Women like Elena had been just 3 weeks ago. The response was immediate. Applications flooded in. Stories that broke Elena's heart and strengthened her resolve. She read every single one. A mother of 3 whose husband had left her with nothing. A young woman escaping an abusive relationship with only the clothes on her back. A grandmother raising her grandchildren because their parents had abandoned them. Elena helped them all. Rent paid, legal fees covered, job training funded, hope restored. But she did it quietly, anonymously. The foundation's public face was a board of directors carefully selected by Richard. Elena's name appeared nowhere, not yet. She was waiting for the right moment. And that moment was about to arrive. The invitations went out yesterday, Richard said, sliding a folder across his desk. 50 of Chicago's most influential people, business leaders, philanthropists, media executives, everyone who matters. Elena opened the folder and looked at the elegant cream-colored cards inside. The Grace Monroe Foundation cordially invites you to an intimate dinner reception, Saturday, October 15th, 7 o'clock in the evening, the Chicago Club. And they accepted. Every single one. Richard smiled. When a foundation with a $500 million endowment throws a party, people show up. What about the two I specifically requested? Richard's smile widened. Derek Mitchell and Sophia Hartley. They RSVP'd yes within an hour of receiving the invitation. Sophia apparently sees this as a major networking opportunity. She's been telling everyone at her company that she's going to get on the board. Elena felt something cold and patient stir inside her. Not revenge. Not exactly. Something more like justice. Does she know who's behind the foundation? No one does. The invitations went out from the board of directors. Your name isn't on any of the materials. As far as anyone knows, the founder is remaining anonymous. Good. Elena stood and walked to the window. The city stretched out below her, millions of lives going about their business, unaware that everything was about to change. I want them to be surprised. I want them to walk into that room thinking they're about to meet some elderly philanthropist or some tech billionaire with more money than sense. And instead, they'll meet you. Instead, they'll meet the woman Derek Mitchell said would never be enough. Elena turned back to her cousin. I'm not doing this to hurt him, Richard. I want you to understand that. I know. I'm doing this because my father wanted me to rise. He wanted me to build something meaningful. And if Derek happens to be in the room when I do it, if he happens to see exactly what he threw away, that's just... She paused, searching for the right word. Karma, Richard supplied. Justice, Elena corrected. There's a difference. The night of the dinner arrived faster than Elena expected. She spent the afternoon at a salon Richard had recommended being transformed by people who charged more per hour than she used to make in a week. Hair, makeup, nails, every detail perfect. Then she went to the boutique where a dress was waiting for her. Emerald green, custom made, elegant without being ostentatious. The kind of dress that whispered power instead of shouting it. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. This wasn't Elena Mitchell, the grieving widow. This wasn't the pregnant woman in yesterday's funeral dress, signing divorce papers while her husband ran off with his mistress. This was Elena Hartwell, billionaire, philanthropist, daughter of a man who had given up everything for love and built an empire anyway. Daddy, she whispered to her reflection, I hope you can see this. I hope you're proud. She felt a flutter in her belly. Her daughter kicking. Almost 8 months now. Soon she would meet the grandfather she would never know through stories, through legacy, through the foundation that bore her grandmother's name. Elena placed her hand on her stomach. Your grandpa planned all of this, little one. Every single detail. He's still taking care of us even now. Another kick. Stronger this time. Elena smiled and headed for the door. The Chicago Club was old money elegance. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, hushed voices, and expensive perfume. The kind of place where fortunes were made and destroyed over dinner. Elena arrived early before any of the guests. She wanted to see the room, to feel it, to prepare herself for what was about to happen. Richard met her at the entrance looking distinguished in his tuxedo. You look incredible, he said. I look like someone else. You look like exactly who you are. He offered his arm. Ready? No. Elena took a deep breath. But I'm going to do it anyway. They walked into the main dining room together. Round tables covered in white linen. Flowers everywhere. A string quartet playing softly in the corner. Everything elegant. Everything perfect. Elena stood at the center of it all and tried to imagine Derek's face when he realized what was happening. She couldn't quite picture it, but she knew she would see it soon enough. The guests began arriving at 7 o'clock sharp. Elena watched from a private room off the main hall, a glass of sparkling water in her hand, as Chicago's elite filed in. Business titans, society matrons, politicians, media moguls, All of them dressed in their finest, all of them curious about the mysterious foundation that had appeared out of nowhere with $500 million to give away. Richard stood beside her, narrating quietly. That's Martin Cole, tech billionaire. Made his money in software before anyone knew what software was. And there's Patricia Langley. She runs the biggest charitable foundation in the Midwest. Very influential. Elena nodded, only half listening. Her eyes were fixed on the entrance. Waiting. At 7:15 they arrived. Derek walked in first, looking exactly like what he was, a mid-level executive, trying desperately to fit in with people far above his station. He was wearing a new suit, probably purchased for the occasion, but it didn't quite fit right. His smile was too eager. His eyes were too calculating. And on his arm, radiant in a red designer gown, was Sophia Hartley. She looked like she owned the place. Confident. Polished. Scanning the room for important people to impress. Her diamond engagement ring caught the light, sparkling with every movement. Elena felt something twist in her chest. Not pain. Not anymore. Something colder. Harder. This was the woman her husband had chosen. This was the woman who had whispered, "Finally," when Elena's father died. This was the woman who had sent that text message, that insufferable text message, asking for Elena's discretion and cooperation. "Are you okay?" Richard asked quietly. "I'm perfect." Elena set down her water glass. "It's time." She walked out of the private room and into the main hall. For a moment no one noticed her. The guests were mingling, making small talk, playing the social games that people like this always played. Then Richard stepped to the microphone at the front of the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming this evening. The Grace Monroe Foundation is honored to have you here. And now it is my great privilege to introduce the founder and director of our foundation. A woman who has dedicated herself to helping those who need it most. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Elena Hartwell." A smattering of polite applause. Curious faces turning toward the front of the room. Elena walked forward, her emerald dress flowing around her, her head held high, her hand resting gently on her pregnant belly. She saw the exact moment Derek recognized her. His face went pale. His champagne glass slipped in his grip, nearly falling. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Beside him, Sophia was slower to understand. She was smiling, clapping politely, not yet connecting the woman at the podium with the grieving wife she had helped destroy. Then recognition hit her too. Her smile froze. Her hands stopped mid-clap. Her perfectly made-up face twisted into something ugly. Shock. Horror. Disbelief. Elena allowed herself one small smile. Then she began to speak. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight." Her voice was steady, calm, the voice of a woman who had nothing left to fear. 3 months ago, I lost my father. His name was William Thornton. Most people knew him as Will the janitor at Lincoln Elementary School. He worked there for 35 years. He mopped floors. He fixed broken desks. He made sure the kids had someone to talk to when they were having a hard day. She paused, letting the words sink in. What most people didn't know was that my father was born William Hartwell III, heir to the Hartwell industrial fortune, a man who was supposed to run one of the largest companies in America. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Elena saw recognition dawning on faces. The Hartwell name meant something in this room. But my father made a different choice. He fell in love with a woman named Grace Monroe, a working-class woman from the South Side. A woman his family said wasn't good enough. Elena's voice cracked slightly, but she pushed through. His family gave him an ultimatum. Give up Grace or give up his inheritance. My father chose love. He walked away from billions of dollars because he believed that character matters more than cash, that love is worth more than luxury, that a good heart is the only treasure that truly counts. The room was silent now, every eye fixed on Elena. He raised me alone after my mother died, giving birth to me. He worked double shifts so I could have dance lessons. He ate ramen for dinner so I could have new shoes for school. He never once complained. He never once regretted his choice. Elena felt tears threatening, but she held them back. What I didn't know, what I only learned after his death, was that my father never actually gave up his inheritance. His grandfather, who loved him, put it in a trust. My father managed it quietly for 35 years, letting it grow, protecting it. All of it, for me. She looked directly at Derek now. His face was the color of ash. 3 months ago, I was 6 months pregnant, grieving my father's death when my husband asked me for a divorce. He told me I would never be enough. He told me he had found someone better, someone successful, ambitious, going places. Derek looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. He divorced me thinking I had nothing. He left me thinking I was poor, powerless, alone. Elena smiled, and it was not a kind smile. He was wrong. She let that sink in for a moment before continuing. When my father died, he left me his entire estate, the trust he had been building for 35 years, valued at approximately $5.8 billion. The gasp that went through the room was audible. Derek grabbed the back of a chair to keep from falling. Sophia looked like she was about to be sick. But more than the money, he left me a mission: to help women who feel powerless and abandoned. Women who have been told they're not enough. Women who have been left behind by men who didn't recognize their worth. Elena's voice rose with conviction. This foundation is for every woman who has ever been underestimated. Every woman who has ever been told she wasn't good enough. Every woman who has ever been abandoned when she needed support the most. She raised her glass of water. To new beginnings. To knowing your worth. To the fathers who protect us, even from beyond the grave. The room erupted in applause. Genuine applause. The kind that came from people who recognized strength when they saw it. Elena stepped down from the podium, and within seconds, she was surrounded by admirers. Business leaders wanting to partner with the foundation. Philanthropists offering their support. Media executives asking for interviews. She handled them all gracefully, just as her father would have wanted. But her eyes kept drifting to the back of the room, where Derek and Sophia stood frozen, trapped in their own personal nightmare. Derek was sweating through his new suit. His face kept cycling through emotions: shock, disbelief, horror, and something that looked almost like grief. The grief of a man realizing he had made the worst mistake of his life. Sophia was gripping his arm so hard her knuckles were white. Her carefully constructed composure was cracking. Her eyes were wild, darting around the room, looking for an escape that didn't exist. Elena excused herself from her admirers and walked toward them. The crowd parted for her. Of course it did. She was the woman of the hour, the billionaire philanthropist. The story everyone would be talking about tomorrow. She stopped directly in front of Derek and Sophia. "Hello, Derek." Her voice was pleasant, almost friendly. "I'm so glad you could make it." Derek opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Sophia found her voice first. "Elena, I had no idea. We didn't know." "Of course you didn't," Elena smiled. "That was rather the point." "Your father was a Hartwell." Derek's voice was strangled. "You're worth billions of dollars. $5.8 billion to be precise. Although the markets fluctuate, so it might be more by now." Derek looked like he was about to faint. "Why didn't you tell me when I asked for the divorce? Why didn't you say anything?" "Why would I? You'd already made your choice." Elena tilted her head slightly. "You chose Sophia. You told me I wasn't enough. You said my father was nothing special, just a janitor who mopped floors." Derek flinched like she had slapped him. "Did you know he came to see me?" Elena continued. 3 weeks before he died. He sat in your chair in your hospital room and asked my dying father about life insurance, asked how much longer he had to live, asked about money." "Elena, I was just trying to be practical." "You were trying to calculate your exit, and my father saw right through you." Elena's voice hardened. "He knew you were going to leave me. He knew it before you did. So he restructured his entire estate to make sure you could never touch a single penny. Derek's face contorted. You set me up. This whole thing, the divorce, you knew you were going to inherit billions, and you let me walk away. I didn't set you up, Derek. I let you make your choice. You chose Sophia. You chose to leave your pregnant wife 3 days after her father's funeral. You chose to marry your mistress while I was still wearing funeral black. Elena's voice was ice. Those were your choices. I simply chose not to stop you. But if you had told me... What? You would have stayed. Elena laughed, and it was not a pleasant sound. You would have suddenly remembered that you loved me. You would have realized that I was enough after all. Derek had no answer. That's what I thought. Elena turned to Sophia. Congratulations on your engagement, by the way. I hope you'll be very happy together. Sophia looked like she was going to be sick. Elena, please. This is all a misunderstanding. Derek and I, we never meant to hurt you. Oh, I think you did. Elena's voice was soft, dangerous. I think you meant to hurt me very much. I think you enjoyed watching me suffer. I think you whispered, finally, when my father's heart stopped beating. Sophia's face went pale. How did you... Maria, the nurse. She heard everything. Elena stepped closer. She told me how you stood in the doorway and smiled when the monitors flatlined. How you squeezed Derek's hand like you'd won a prize. Sophia was trembling now. That's not... I didn't mean... It doesn't matter what you meant. What matters is what you did. Elena straightened her shoulders. But I'm not here to punish you, Sophia. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to build something meaningful, something that helps people, something my father would have been proud of. She looked at Derek one last time. My father used to say that the best revenge is living well. He was right. Elena smiled, and this time it was genuine. Goodbye, Derek. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. I suspect it won't be with Sophia, but that's not really my concern anymore. She turned and walked away. Behind her she heard Sophia's voice rising in panic and fury. Derek! Derek, what have you done? What have I done? You were the one who pushed me to leave her. Because you told me she was poor. You told me she had nothing. You said we were trading up. I didn't know. How was I supposed to know her father was a secret billionaire? You left your pregnant wife for me. You married me 24 hours after her father died, and she's worth $5 billion. Sophia's voice cracked. Do you have any idea what this looks like? What people are going to say? Sophia, calm down. Calm down. I'm ruined. Derek, my reputation, my career, everything I've worked for. Everyone in this room knows who we are now. Everyone knows what we did. We can fix this. We can talk to Elena. Maybe if we explain... Explain what? That you're an idiot who divorced a billionaire for his mistress. That I helped you do it. Sophia laughed high and hysterical. There's no fixing this, Derek. There's no explaining this. We're done. What do you mean done? I mean I can't be married to you. I can't be seen with you. Not after this. Sophia was crying now, her perfect makeup running down her face. Do you know what they're going to call me? The other woman, the gold digger. The woman who stole the billionaire's husband and got exactly what she deserved. Sophia, please. No. She pulled the engagement ring off her finger and shoved it into his hand. I was so sure I'd won, so sure she was nobody. But she let you go because you were nothing, and she knew it before either of us did. She walked away, her red designer gown swirling behind her, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Derek stood alone in the middle of the room, holding an engagement ring, watching his entire life collapse around him. Elena didn't look back. She spent the rest of the evening exactly as she had planned, meeting donors, discussing partnerships, laying the groundwork for the foundation's future. Richard appeared at her elbow around 10 o'clock. Sophia left about an hour ago. She was crying in the parking garage. Derek followed her, but she drove off without him. And Derek? He's been standing by the bar drinking bourbon and staring at the wall. I think he's in shock. Elena nodded. She felt something, but it wasn't satisfaction. It wasn't triumph. It was something quieter. Sadder. My father was right about him all along. I just couldn't see it. Love makes us blind sometimes. No. Elena shook her head. I was never in love with Derek. I was in love with the idea of him. The idea of a partner, a family, a normal life. She placed her hand on her belly. But I have a family now, just not the one I expected. Richard smiled. You have more family than you know. The Hartwells may have disowned your father, but there are others. Cousins, aunts, uncles, people who never agreed with what the family did. They've been watching you tonight. They want to meet you. Maybe someday, but not tonight. Elena looked around the room at the glittering crowd, the crystal chandeliers, the whole elaborate world she had just entered. Tonight, I just want to go home. I want to sit in my father's jacket and remember who he was, who he taught me to be. He would have been proud of you tonight. I know. Elena's eyes glistened. I could feel him here, standing right beside me, whispering in my ear. What was he saying? Elena smiled through her tears. He was saying, "That's my girl." She walked out of the Chicago club just before midnight, leaving behind the life she had known and stepping into the one her father had always prepared her for. The cameras were waiting outside. Word had already spread. Reporters shouted questions. Flashes exploded in her face. Miss Hartwell, is it true you're worth $5 billion? Miss Hartwell, did you really donate $500 million to charity? Miss Hartwell, can you comment on your ex-husband's reaction? Elena paused on the steps, one hand on her belly, the other raised to shield her eyes from the lights. I'll be making a statement tomorrow, she said calmly. Tonight, I'm going home to rest. It's been a long day, a long 3 months actually. She walked to the car Richard had waiting, climbed inside, and closed the door on the chaos. As the driver pulled away, she looked back at the club one last time. Through the windows, she could see Derek still standing at the bar, still staring at nothing. He had walked into that room thinking he had escaped her, thinking he had traded up, thinking he had left poverty and burden behind for success and ambition. He was walking out with nothing. Elena turned away and closed her eyes. Daddy, she whispered, thank you for everything, for knowing what was coming, for protecting me anyway, for teaching me that the best revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming so magnificent that my enemies destroy themselves. The car drove through the Chicago night, past Hartwell Tower, past her father's old apartment, past all the places where their story had begun. Tomorrow, everything would be different. The world would know her name. The foundation would begin its real work. The healing would continue. But tonight, Elena just rested her hand on her belly and smiled. She had risen, just like her father knew she would. And Derek Mitchell would spend the rest of his life knowing exactly what he had lost. The news broke like wildfire. By morning, Elena's face was on every news channel in Chicago. Secret billionaire reveals identity at charity gala. Janitor's daughter inherits $5.8 billion fortune. The woman who let her cheating husband go. Elena's phone rang nonstop. Reporters, talk show hosts, magazine editors. Everyone wanted an interview. Everyone wanted the story. She ignored them all. Richard handled the press. A brief statement confirming the basics. The Grace Monroe Foundation would continue its work. Miss Hartwell appreciated the public's interest, but requested privacy during this time. Privacy. What a concept. Elena sat in her apartment, wrapped in her father's jacket, watching the chaos unfold on television. They showed photos of Derek leaving the gala alone. Photos of Sophia crying in her car. Photos of Elena radiant in her emerald dress, looking every inch the billionaire heiress she had just discovered she was. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Elena, please, we need to talk. It's Derek." She stared at the message for a long moment. Then she blocked the number. 2 hours later, another text from a different number. "I know you're angry. I deserve that. But please just let me explain. I made a mistake." Blocked. An hour after that, a third number. "Elena, I'm begging you. I'll do anything. Just talk to me." Blocked. Richard called around noon. "Derek's been trying to reach me. He's called the office 17 times. What does he want? What do you think?" "He wants a second chance. He wants to apologize. He wants to come crawling back now that he knows what you're worth." Elena felt something cold settle in her chest. "And what did you tell him?" "I told him that Miss Hartwell was unavailable, and that any further contact would be handled by our legal department." Richard paused. He didn't take it well. Started crying on the phone. Said he made the biggest mistake of his life. He did. He asked if there was any way to contest the divorce. Any way to claim part of the estate. Elena laughed, but there was no humor in it. And I explained that the trust your father created is completely ironclad. Derek has no legal claim to anything. Even if you had still been married when your father died, the structure would have prevented him from touching a single penny. Your father thought of everything. Of course he did. There's something else. Richard's voice grew serious. Sophia Hartley has been making calls too. Not to us, to her company, to mutual friends. She's trying to get ahead of the story, trying to spin it so she looks like a victim. A victim of what? Of Derek, apparently. She's telling people he lied to her, told her you were poor and desperate. She says she had no idea he was still married when they started seeing each other. That's a lie. Of course it is. But she's desperate. The video from the parking garage is everywhere. Elena sat up straighter. What video? Someone recorded her screaming at Derek after the gala. You left a billionaire for me. What have we done? It's gone viral. 3 million views and counting. Elena closed her eyes. She should have felt satisfaction, triumph, vindication. All she felt was tired. I don't want to be part of this circus, Richard. I don't want to spend the next year watching Derek and Sophia tear each other apart in public. Then don't. Focus on the foundation. Focus on your daughter. Let them destroy themselves without any help from you. Is that what my father would have done? Your father would have walked away and never looked back, just like he did with the Hartwell family 40 years ago. Richard's voice softened. He chose love over drama, Elena. He chose peace over revenge. That's why he was happy. That's why you're happy now. Elena smiled despite herself. I'm not sure happy is the right word. Healing, then? You're healing. And the best way to keep healing is to stay focused on what matters. The foundation. And your daughter. You're due in 6 weeks, aren't you? Elena placed her hand on her belly. 5.5. Then you have 5.5 weeks to build something beautiful before your whole world changes again. Don't waste it on Derek Mitchell. He's not worth it. He never was. No, he never was. The first board meeting of the Grace Monroe Foundation took place 3 days after the gala. Elena sat at the head of a long conference table, surrounded by people who actually wanted to help. Women's advocates, social workers, financial experts, all of them handpicked by Richard, all of them committed to the mission. We've received over 2,000 applications in the past week, Patricia Chen reported. Patricia was a former social worker who had spent 30 years helping women in crisis. Elena had hired her as the foundation's executive director. Everything from emergency housing requests to educational funding to legal aid. How many can we help? With our current resources, all of them. Patricia smiled. Your father's endowment is larger than most foundations see in their entire existence. We can make a real difference, Elena. A lasting difference. Then let's do it. Elena leaned forward. I don't want this to be another foundation that talks about helping people and spends most of its money on galas and overhead. I want 90% of every dollar going directly to women who need it. The board members exchanged glances. That kind of efficiency was almost unheard of in the nonprofit world. That's an ambitious target, one of the financial advisors said carefully. I'm an ambitious person. Elena's voice was firm. My father worked as a janitor for 35 years so I could learn the value of money. I'm not going to waste his legacy on expensive offices and fancy dinners. Every dollar matters. Every woman matters. Patricia was beaming. I think we can make that work. Good. Elena stood, signaling the end of the meeting. I want the first grants approved by the end of the week. These women have been waiting long enough. The board filed out, energized and inspired. Richard lingered behind. You're a natural at this, he said. I had a good teacher. Elena looked at the empty conference room. My father used to tell me that real leadership isn't about power. It's about service. About using whatever you have to help the people who need it most. He was a wise man. He was the best man I ever knew. Richard nodded. There's something else we need to discuss. Something less pleasant. Derek again. Worse. The Hartwells. Elena felt her stomach tighten. What about them? They've been watching. The news coverage, the foundation announcement, your speech at the gala. Richard pulled out a letter and handed it to her. This arrived this morning, from Eleanor Hartwell. Eleanor Hartwell, her grandmother. The woman who had tried to pay Grace Monroe to disappear. The woman who had given her father the ultimatum that changed his life. Elena opened the envelope with trembling hands. My dear Elena, I have watched the recent events with great interest. It seems my grandson chose well in hiding his fortune. You have handled yourself with remarkable grace. I would very much like to meet you. Despite what you may have heard, family is important to me. We have much to discuss. Please contact my assistant to arrange a meeting at your earliest convenience. Sincerely, Eleanor Hartwell. Elena stared at the letter. Then she crumpled it into a ball and threw it in the trash. That's your answer, then? Richard asked. That woman tried to destroy my parents' marriage. She paid investigators to dig up dirt on my mother. She offered her $2 million to disappear. Elena's voice was shaking with anger. And now she wants to meet me. Now that I'm worth billions. Now that I'm useful to her. To be fair, she's 93 years old. Maybe she's had a change of heart. Or maybe she's had a change of strategy. She couldn't control my father, but maybe she thinks she can control me. Elena shook her head. I'm not interested in being a Hartwell. I'm a Thornton. I'm a Mitchell. I'm my father's daughter and my mother's legacy. That's enough for me. What do you want me to tell her? Nothing. Let her wonder. Let her wait. Elena smiled grimly. She made my father wait 35 years for recognition he never got. She can wait a little longer. The weeks that followed were a blur of activity. The foundation approved its first 100 grants. Women across Chicago received help they had never expected. Rent paid. Legal fees covered. Job training funded. Hope restored. Elena read every success story personally. Every thank you letter. Every email from a woman whose life had been transformed by her father's generosity. Dear Miss Hartwell, I don't know how to thank you. 6 months ago, my husband left me with 3 children and no money. I was about to be evicted. I had nowhere to go. Your foundation paid my rent for a year and gave me a grant to finish nursing school. Next month I graduate. I already have a job lined up at Cook County Hospital. My children won't have to grow up in a shelter. They'll have a home. They'll have a future. Because of you. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Maria Gonzalez. Elena cried when she read that one. And the next one. And the next. This was what her father had wanted. Not revenge, not triumph, just the quiet, powerful work of making the world a little better. But the world wasn't done with drama yet. Derek showed up at her apartment building on a Tuesday afternoon. Elena was just returning from a doctor's appointment. 8 months pregnant now. Tired but happy. Her daughter was healthy. Everything was proceeding normally. She saw him waiting by the entrance and stopped in her tracks. He looked terrible, unshaven, rumpled, like he hadn't slept in days. His expensive suit was wrinkled. His eyes were red-rimmed, and he was clutching a bouquet of yellow roses. Yellow roses. Her father's favorite. The sight of them in Derek's hands made something hot and ugly flare in Elena's chest. "Elena," his voice cracked. "Please, just give me 5 minutes." "No. I know I don't deserve it. I know I hurt you. But please just let me explain." "There's nothing to explain, Derek. You made your choice. You chose Sophia. You chose to leave me when I had nothing. Now I have everything, and suddenly you want to talk?" Elena shook her head. "That tells me everything I need to know about who you really are." "I was wrong." Tears were streaming down his face. "I was so wrong, Elena. I was blinded by ambition, by Sophia's promises, by my own stupid ego. I convinced myself that I deserved more than what we had, that you were holding me back. I was holding you back. That's what Sophia told me. That's what I told myself." Derek stepped closer, and Elena stepped back. "But she was lying. She never loved me. She loved what she thought I could become. And when she found out the truth about you, she left. Just like that. No explanation. No goodbye. Just a text message saying she couldn't be seen with me anymore. And that's supposed to make me feel sorry for you. No, it's supposed to show you that I understand now. I understand what real love is, what real loyalty is." Derek held out the roses. "I should have chosen you, Elena. I should have stood by you. I should have been there when your father died, holding your hand, telling you everything would be okay. But you weren't. You were with Sophia. I know, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life." His voice broke. "Please, Elena, give me another chance. I'll prove I've changed. I'll be the husband you deserved, the father our daughter needs." Elena stared at him for a long moment, at the roses in his trembling hands, at the tears on his face, at the desperate hope in his eyes, and she felt nothing. No love, no anger, no pity, just a vast, empty nothing. "You want to know the saddest part of all this, Derek?" Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "I'm not even angry anymore. I was for a while. I was furious. I wanted to scream at you. I wanted to make you hurt the way you hurt me. Then do it. Scream at me. Hit me. Whatever you need. That's just it. I don't need anything from you." Elena took the roses from his hands and looked at them. "My father loved yellow roses. He used to buy them for my mother every week before she died. And after she was gone, he still bought them. Every week. Put them on her grave." Derek said nothing. "When he was dying, when I was sitting beside his bed holding his hand, he told me about you. He said you were going to leave me. He said he could see it in your eyes." Elena. He was right. About everything. And do you know what else he said? He said that when you left, I should let you go. That I shouldn't fight for someone who was never worth fighting for. She handed the roses back to Derek. "You weren't worth fighting for, Derek. You proved that when you walked out. And now it's too late." "It's not too late. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can start over." "Start over?" Elena laughed. "You left me 3 days after my father's funeral. You married your mistress while I was still wearing funeral black. You came to my dying father's hospital room and asked him about money." Her voice hardened. "There is no starting over from that. There's no counseling that fixes that kind of betrayal." "So that's it. You won't even try." "I already tried, Derek. For 3 years I tried to be the wife you wanted. I tried to support your career. I tried to be patient when you worked late. I tried to understand when you forgot anniversaries and birthdays and doctor's appointments." Elena shook her head. "I was so busy trying to be enough for you that I forgot to ask if you were enough for me. And I wasn't. No, you weren't. You never were." Elena stepped past him and walked toward the building entrance. "Goodbye, Derek. Don't come here again." "What about the baby? What about our daughter?" Elena paused but didn't turn around. "You can see her when she's born, supervised visits. That's what the court ordered, and that's what you'll get. But you will never be her father. Not really. You gave up that right when you walked away." "Elena, please." "I said goodbye, Derek." She opened the door. "Trust me when I tell you walking away from you is the best thing I've ever done. My father knew it. Now I know it too." She walked inside and let the door close behind her. Derek stood there for a long time, clutching the yellow roses, watching the space where she had been. Then he dropped the flowers in the trash and walked away. 2 weeks later, Sophia Hartley was fired from Maxwell and Associates. Elena heard about it from Richard, who had contacts everywhere. Apparently, the company decided she was a liability. Too much negative press. Too many clients threatening to leave if she stayed. Richard almost sounded sympathetic. Almost. "She's been blacklisted by every major marketing firm in Chicago. No one wants to touch her." "Where did she go?" "Boston, last I heard. Took a job at a small agency. Entry-level position. Significant pay cut." Elena thought about the woman who had sent her that text message. The one requesting discretion and cooperation. The one who had smiled when her father died. "I don't feel sorry for her," Elena said. "Neither do I. But I don't feel happy about it either. I thought I would. I thought watching her fall would feel like justice." Elena shook her head. "It just feels empty. Like watching a stranger fail at something that has nothing to do with me." "That's because you've moved on. You're building something. She's still tearing things down." Richard smiled. "That's the difference between you and people like Sophia. You create. She destroys. In the end, creation always wins." "My father used to say something like that." "I know. He said it to me, too." Elena's due date came and went. The doctors weren't worried. First babies often ran late, but Elena was getting impatient. She wanted to meet her daughter. She wanted to hold her. She wanted to tell her about the grandfather she would never know. She spent her days at the foundation, working as long as her body would allow. 200 grants approved now. 500 women helped. 1,000 lives changed. The news coverage had shifted. Nobody was talking about Derek and Sophia anymore. They were talking about Elena. About the foundation. About the quiet revolution happening in Chicago, one woman at a time. But Elena barely noticed. She was focused on the work, on the mission, on the legacy. And then, on a cold November morning, her water broke. Richard drove her to the hospital, his hands steady on the wheel, while Elena tried to remember the breathing exercises she had learned. "Are you scared?" he asked. "Terrified." Elena laughed despite the pain. "But also excited. My father always said I was brave. I guess I'm about to find out if he was right." The labor lasted 14 hours. Elena thought about her mother during the hard parts. Grace Monroe, who had died giving birth to her only child, who had loved William Hartwell so much that she risked everything to be with him. "I understand now, Mama," Elena whispered between contractions. "I understand why you did it. Why you gave up everything for love. Because this thing growing inside me, this is worth any sacrifice, any pain, any loss." The nurses encouraged her. The doctors monitored her. Richard waited in the hallway, pacing like an expectant father. And finally, at 3:47 in the morning, exactly 100 days after her own father had died, Elena's daughter came into the world. The nurse placed the tiny squalling bundle in Elena's arms, and everything else disappeared. The pain, the exhaustion, the betrayal and the loss, and the grief. All of it vanished, replaced by a love so fierce and pure that Elena couldn't breathe. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "I'm your mama, and I'm going to tell you about your grandpa, about how he loved us, about how he protected us, about how he's still watching over us even now." The baby opened her eyes, dark eyes, William's eyes. Elena started to cry. "What are you going to name her?" the nurse asked softly. Elena looked at her daughter, at the perfect miracle in her arms, and remembered her father's last request. "Grace," she said. "Her name is Grace William Mitchell Thornton, after her grandmother, and after the man who made all of this possible." Richard came in a few minutes later, his eyes red, his smile wide. "She's beautiful," he said. "She's perfect." Elena couldn't stop staring at her daughter. "She's everything. Your father would have been so proud." "He is proud." Elena looked up and her eyes were shining. "He's here, Richard. I can feel him, standing right beside me, watching over both of us." Uncle Will always did have good timing. Elena laughed, and the sound echoed through the room, mixing with Grace's soft cries. A new beginning. A new life. A new chapter in a story that had started with loss and betrayal and ended with love and redemption. Well, not ended. Not yet. But the hardest part was over. Elena had risen just like her father knew she would. She had built something beautiful. She had found her worth. She had become exactly who she was always meant to be. And now, holding her daughter in her arms, she knew that the best was yet to come. The next morning, a message arrived at the hospital. Elena was half asleep, Grace cradled against her chest, when the nurse brought in a large envelope. "This was delivered for you, Miss Hartwell. The courier said it was urgent." Elena opened it with one hand, careful not to disturb her sleeping daughter. Inside was a letter, handwritten. The penmanship was shaky but elegant. "Dear Elena, I have heard about the birth of your daughter. Congratulations. I know you have no reason to trust me. I know I gave your father an impossible choice many years ago. I know I drove him away from his family, and in doing so, I lost the only grandson I ever truly loved. I am 93 years old. I have made many mistakes. Pushing William away was the greatest of them. I do not ask for forgiveness. I do not deserve it. But I would very much like to meet my great-great-granddaughter before I die. Please consider it. Not for my sake, for hers. She deserves to know where she comes from. All of it. The good and the bad. With respect, Eleanor Hartwell." Elena stared at the letter for a long time. Then she looked at Grace, sleeping peacefully in her arms. "What do you think, little one?" she whispered. "Should we give her a chance?" Grace didn't answer. She just kept sleeping, her tiny fingers curled into fists, her face peaceful and trusting. Elena folded the letter and set it aside. She didn't know yet what she would decide, but for the first time she was willing to consider it. Not because Eleanor deserved forgiveness, not because Elena had forgotten what the Hartwells had done, but because her father had taught her that holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. Because he had chosen love over bitterness again and again. Because he had spent his entire life showing her that the strongest thing a person could do was forgive. She would think about it. Later. When she was ready. Right now, all that mattered was the tiny miracle in her arms. The daughter who carried her grandmother's name and her grandfather's eyes. The next chapter in a story of love and sacrifice and redemption. Elena closed her eyes and held her daughter close. She was home. 5 years passed like a heartbeat. Grace William Mitchell Thornton grew from a squalling newborn into a fierce, curious, brilliant little girl with her grandfather's dark eyes and her grandmother's unstoppable spirit. She had Elena's smile and William's stubbornness, and she filled every room she entered with a light that made strangers stop and stare. Elena watched her daughter grow and saw echoes of everyone she had ever loved. The way Grace tilted her head when she was thinking just like William used to do. The way she laughed with her whole body, just like the photos Elena had seen of her mother. The way she refused to back down from anything, just like Elena herself. The Grace Monroe Foundation had grown too. 5,000 women helped in the first year, 20,000 by the third. By the 5th anniversary of William's death, the foundation had changed over 50,000 lives across 12 states. Elena had become a figure, a symbol. The woman who had risen from ashes. The daughter who had honored her father's legacy. The billionaire who lived simply and gave generously. But to Grace, she was just Mama. And that was the only title Elena had ever wanted. "Tell me about Grandpa again," Grace said on the morning of her 5th birthday. They were sitting at the kitchen table eating pancakes shaped like stars, the same breakfast William used to make for Elena every birthday. "What do you want to know, baby girl?" "Everything. Tell me everything." Elena smiled and pulled her daughter onto her lap. "Your grandpa was the bravest man I ever knew. He gave up everything for love. He worked as a janitor for 35 years, mopping floors and fixing broken things because he wanted to live a simple life, a real life. But he was rich, right? That's what you told me." "He was very rich, but he didn't think money was what made a person valuable. He thought character was more important than cash. He thought love was worth more than luxury. He thought a good heart was the only treasure that truly counted." Grace considered this with the seriousness only a 5-year-old could muster. "Is that why you help all those ladies? The ones who write you letters?" "Yes, baby, that's exactly why. Because Grandpa wanted you to. Because Grandpa taught me that when you have a lot, you should share it with people who have a little. He used to say that we're all connected, that when we help one person, we help everyone." Grace nodded solemnly. Then her face brightened. "Can we visit Grandpa today? I want to show him my birthday dress." Elena's heart clenched. Every year on Grace's birthday they visited William's grave. Elena would bring yellow roses, and Grace would bring drawings. She had made pictures of rainbows and butterflies, and the grandfather she had never met, but somehow knew by heart. "Of course we can, baby. We'll go right after your party." The party was held at Lincoln Elementary School, the same school where William had worked for 35 years. The principal had offered the gymnasium for free, touched by the story of the janitor who had secretly been a billionaire. 50 children came. Grace's classmates from the private kindergarten Elena had chosen not because it was expensive, but because it had the best teachers and the smallest class sizes. Elena wanted her daughter to have every opportunity, but she also wanted her to stay grounded, to remember where she came from. Mrs. Chen came to the party now 82 years old, but still sharp as a tack. She had become a regular presence in Elena's life, a connection to William that Elena treasured. "He would have loved this," Mrs. Chen said, watching Grace tear through wrapping paper with abandon. All these children laughing, his granddaughter happy. "This is exactly what he wanted for you." "I wish he could have met her." "He did meet her." Mrs. Chen patted Elena's hand. "He knew her before she was born. He loved her before she had a name. That's why he did what he did. That's why he planned everything so carefully. He was meeting her the only way he could." Elena felt tears threatening and blinked them back. "I still talk to him sometimes. Is that crazy?" "It's not crazy at all. I talk to my husband every day, and he's been gone for 20 years. Mrs. Chen smiled. "The people we love don't really leave us. They just change form. They become the voice in our head that tells us to be brave, the feeling in our heart that tells us we're not alone." "That's beautiful." "That's William. He taught me that, years ago when I was going through my own hard time. He told me that love doesn't end with death. It just transforms into something different, something permanent." Elena hugged the old woman and didn't let go for a long time. After the party, after the cake and the presents and the chaos of 50 sugar-fueled children, Elena drove Grace to Evergreen Cemetery. They walked hand in hand to William's grave, Grace carrying a bouquet of yellow roses she had picked out herself. "Hi, Grandpa," Grace said, placing the flowers carefully against the headstone. "I'm 5 today. Mama says that's a very important number." Elena knelt beside her daughter. "It is important. When I was 5, Grandpa taught me to ride a bicycle. He said 5 was the age when everything starts to make sense. Did everything make sense for you? Not really. But your grandpa made me feel like it would someday. That's what good parents do. They make you feel safe, even when the world is scary." Grace traced the letters on the headstone with her finger. "William Thornton, beloved father, forever in our hearts." Why doesn't it say Hartwell? That's his real name, right? It was his first name, but he chose to be Thornton. He chose to be my daddy instead of a Hartwell. Elena's voice caught. "Names don't really matter, baby. What matters is how we live, what we give, who we love." "Is that why I have so many names? Grace William Mitchell Thornton." "You have those names because you carry everyone with you. Your grandmother Grace, your grandfather William, your father's name, and your mama's name." Elena pulled her daughter close. "You're the best of all of us, baby girl. The best of everyone who came before." They sat in silence for a while, mother and daughter honoring the man who had made everything possible. Then Grace said something that stopped Elena's heart. "Mama, that man is watching us." Elena looked up sharply. Across the cemetery, maybe 50 yards away, a figure stood beside a tree. Male, rumpled, familiar. Derek. Elena's jaw tightened. "Stay here, baby. Mama will be right back." She walked toward Derek, her hands clenched at her sides, 5 years of carefully maintained distance threatening to collapse. He looked terrible, older than his 40 years, thinner. His clothes were cheap, his face was worn, and his eyes had the hollow look of a man who had lost everything and knew exactly who to blame. "You're not supposed to be here," Elena said when she reached him. "The restraining order is very clear." I know. Derek held up his hands. "I just wanted to see her. It's her birthday. I just wanted to see my daughter on her birthday." "She's not your daughter. Not in any way that matters." "Elena, please. It's been 5 years. I've done everything you asked. I've stayed away. I've paid child support. I've gone to therapy. I've changed." "Have you?" "Yes." His voice cracked. "I lost everything, Elena. My job, my reputation, my apartment. Sophia left me the same week you revealed the truth at that gala. I've been working retail for 3 years just to make ends meet. And that's supposed to make me feel sorry for you. No. It's supposed to show you that I've paid for what I did. I've suffered. I've learned." Derek's eyes were wet. "I know I can't undo the past. I know I can't take back what I said, what I did. But I'm still her father. Biologically, at least. Doesn't that count for something?" Elena looked at him for a long moment. At the man who had once been her husband. The man who had abandoned her when she needed him most. The man who had called her father nothing special. "Do you want to know what my daddy said about you?" Her voice was quiet. "Right before he died." Derek nodded, not trusting his voice. "He said you were going to leave me. He said he could see it in your eyes. And he said that when you left, I should let you go." Elena stepped closer. "He also said I shouldn't be cruel. He said I should just be myself, and that would be punishment enough." He was right. It has been. "I don't hate you, Derek. I did for a while. But hate takes too much energy, and I have better things to spend my energy on. Then let me see her. Let me be part of her life, even just a little. Even just birthdays and holidays, please." Elena turned and looked at Grace, who was still sitting by William's grave, talking to her grandfather like he could hear her. "She asks about you sometimes," Elena said finally. She wants to know why her daddy doesn't come to see her. What do you tell her? I tell her the truth. That you made some mistakes, that you hurt Mama very badly, but that you're still her father, and maybe someday when she's older, she can decide for herself whether she wants to know you. Derek's face crumpled. That's fair. That's more than fair. It's not about fair. It's about grace. It's about what's best for her. Elena turned back to him. If I let you see her, if I give you supervised visits again, it has to be different this time. No more disappearing. No more broken promises. No more putting yourself first. I understand. Do you? Because she's not a prize, Derek. She's not a trophy you can show off to prove you've changed. She's a person. A brilliant, beautiful, complicated person who deserves a father who shows up. Every time, no matter what. I'll show up. I swear I will. Elena studied his face, looking for the lie, looking for the manipulation she had learned to recognize too late. But all she saw was a broken man asking for one more chance. I'll talk to my lawyer, she said finally. We'll arrange something. But if you hurt her, Derek, if you disappoint her even once, I will make sure you never see her again. Do you understand? I understand. Good. Elena turned to walk away, then paused. And Derek, don't ever come to my father's grave again. This place is sacred. It's not for you. She walked back to Grace without looking back. Who was that man, Mama? Someone from a long time ago, baby. Nobody important. He looked sad. He is sad. But that's not our problem to fix. Elena took her daughter's hand. Come on, let's go home. We still have birthday cake to eat. Grace brightened immediately, the stranger forgotten. Can I have 2 pieces? It's your birthday. You can have 3. They walked out of the cemetery together, leaving the past behind. 6 months later, Elena finally answered Eleanor Hartwell's letters. Not because she had forgiven the old woman, not because she wanted anything from the Hartwell family, but because Grace had started asking questions about her great-great-grandmother, and Elena believed in truth more than she believed in grudges. They met at Eleanor's estate in Lake Forest, a massive mansion that seemed to groan under the weight of its own history. Eleanor was 94 now, confined to a wheelchair, her hands gnarled with arthritis, her eyes still sharp despite everything. Thank you for coming, she said when Elena and Grace were shown into her sitting room. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't. Elena sat down across from the old woman, Grace on her lap. But my father taught me that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. William always was wise. Eleanor's voice cracked. Wiser than any of us. I should have seen it then. I was too proud, too certain I knew what was best. You tried to pay my mother to disappear. You gave my father an ultimatum that drove him away from his family. I did. Eleanor didn't flinch from the accusation. I was wrong. I was arrogant and cruel and convinced that money was the only thing that mattered. It took me 30 years to realize how wrong I was. Why should I believe you've changed? You shouldn't, not based on words. Eleanor gestured to a folder on the table beside her. But perhaps you'll believe actions. Elena picked up the folder and opened it. Inside were documents. Legal documents. I'm dying, Eleanor said simply. The doctors give me 6 months, maybe less. I've spent the last 5 years restructuring my estate. Everything I have, everything the Hartwells have built over 4 generations is going to the Grace Monroe Foundation. Elena stared at the numbers. Hundreds of millions of dollars. Properties, investments, art collections, all of it designated for the foundation William's daughter had built. Why? Because it's the only way I can make amends. I can't bring William back. I can't undo the decades of separation. But I can make sure that his legacy, your legacy, has everything it needs to change the world. Eleanor's eyes were wet. It's not enough. I know it's not enough. But it's all I have left to give. Grace squirmed in Elena's lap. Mama, who is this lady? Elena looked at her daughter, then at the ancient woman in the wheelchair. "This is your great-great-grandmother," she said finally. "She's your grandpa's grandma." Grace's eyes went wide. She knew Grandpa. She did. A long time ago. Grace slipped off Elena's lap and walked toward Eleanor. The old woman watched her approach with something like wonder on her face. "You have his eyes," Eleanor whispered. "William's eyes. I'd know them anywhere. Mama says I have his stubborn too." Stubbornness. Eleanor laughed, a rusty sound like a gate that hadn't been opened in years. "Yes, I can see that. The Hartwells are all stubborn. It's our greatest strength and our greatest weakness." "Are you really dying?" "Grace." Elena stood quickly, mortified, but Eleanor held up a hand. "It's all right. Children should ask honest questions." She looked at Grace with clear eyes. "Yes, little one, I'm really dying, but I'm not afraid. I've lived a very long time and I've made a lot of mistakes. Now I get to rest." "Grandpa isn't afraid either," Grace said matter-of-factly. "Mama says he's watching us from heaven. He's probably watching right now." Eleanor's composure finally cracked. Tears spilled down her weathered cheeks. "I hope he is," she whispered. "I hope he can see that I'm trying finally to make things right." Grace did something that surprised everyone, including herself. She stepped forward and hugged the old woman, wrapping her small arms around Eleanor's frail shoulders. "It's okay," Grace said, patting Eleanor's back the way Elena patted hers when she was sad. "Grandpa forgives you. I can tell." Eleanor sobbed, clutching the child who represented everything she had lost and everything she had thrown away. Elena watched them and felt something loosen in her chest. Not forgiveness exactly. Not yet. But the beginning of something. The possibility of healing. "We'll visit again," she said quietly. "If you'd like that." Eleanor looked up, her face wet with tears, Grace still in her arms. "I would like that very much." They visited Eleanor 3 more times before she died. Each visit Grace brought drawings, pictures of yellow roses and butterflies, and a man with kind eyes who Eleanor said looked exactly like William. Each visit Eleanor told stories about William as a boy, about his fierce intelligence and his gentle heart, about the day he told his family he was going to marry Grace Monroe and the look in his eyes when they tried to stop him. "He never wavered," Eleanor said during their last visit, her voice barely a whisper. "Not once. He knew what he wanted, and he went after it with everything he had. I should have admired that. Instead, I feared it." "Why?" "Because it meant he didn't need us. Didn't need the money, or the power, or the family name. He had something better. Something real." Eleanor looked at Grace asleep in Elena's lap. "He had love. And now you have it too. Both of you. That's his real legacy. Not the billions. The love." Eleanor Hartwell died 3 days later. The funeral was massive. Hundreds of Chicago's elite paying their respects to the last of the old guard. But Elena didn't attend the public service. She held a private moment at the grave, just her and Grace and Richard saying goodbye to a woman who had spent 94 years getting things wrong and 6 months trying desperately to get them right. "Do you think Grandpa met her?" Grace asked as they walked away from the cemetery. "In heaven?" "I hope so, baby. I hope they're together now. Maybe they're finally talking about everything that went wrong. Maybe he's teaching her to ride a bicycle." Elena laughed despite herself. "Maybe he is." The Hartwell fortune transferred to the Grace Monroe Foundation as Eleanor had promised. $300 million plus properties plus investments that would continue to grow for decades. Elena used it exactly as her father would have wanted. More grants, more programs. More women helped, more lives changed. More proof that love was stronger than money. That character was more valuable than cash. The foundation opened offices in 12 cities. Elena hired former recipients to run them, women who understood what it meant to start over, women who knew the value of a second chance. She never forgot where she came from. She never forgot the tiny apartment where her father had raised her. She never forgot the yellow roses, or the star-shaped pancakes, or the worn janitor jacket that still hung in her closet. And every year on the anniversary of William's death, she gathered everyone who mattered at Evergreen Cemetery: Richard and his family, Mrs. Chen and the former teachers from Lincoln Elementary, the board of the foundation, the women whose lives had been changed. They told stories about William, about his kindness, his wisdom, his belief that everyone deserved dignity and respect. They laughed and cried and remembered keeping his memory alive for a new generation. Grace grew up hearing these stories. She grew up knowing exactly who her grandfather was and exactly what he had sacrificed. When she was 12, she asked Elena a question. "Mama, do you ever regret it letting Daddy see me?" Elena thought carefully before answering. Derek had kept his promise. He showed up for every scheduled visit. He never missed a birthday or a holiday. He was careful and consistent and utterly devoted to proving himself worthy. "No," she said finally. "I don't regret it." "Why not, after everything he did?" "Because holding on to anger doesn't hurt the person you're angry at. It hurts you." Elena pulled her daughter close. "Your grandfather taught me that. He spent 35 years living proof that you don't need revenge to find happiness. You just need to focus on what matters. The people you love. The work that gives you meaning. The life you're building." "Is that why you don't hate him?" "I don't hate your father. I feel sorry for him sometimes. He's spent the last 12 years knowing exactly what he threw away. That's punishment enough." "Does he still love you?" "I think he loves the idea of what we could have been. But that's not the same thing as love." Elena kissed her daughter's forehead. "Real love is what Grandpa had with Grandma Grace. Real love is what I have with you. It's messy and complicated, and sometimes it hurts, but it's always worth it." Grace thought about this for a long moment. "I think I understand." "You will, when you're older, when you fall in love for the first time. Just remember what Grandpa taught us. Character matters more than cash. Love is worth more than luxury. A good heart is the only treasure that truly counts." "I'll remember, Mama, I promise." On Grace's 18th birthday, they visited William's grave one last time as mother and child. Tomorrow, Grace would leave for college. Harvard on a full scholarship she had earned entirely on her own merits. She had refused to use the Hartwell name or the family money to get in. She wanted to succeed because of who she was, not because of what she had. William would have been so proud. "I'm scared, Mama," Grace admitted, standing before her grandfather's headstone. "I've never been away from home before. Never been away from you." "I know, baby, but you're ready. Your grandpa made sure of that, even though he never got to meet you." Elena squeezed her daughter's hand. "He's been preparing you your whole life. Every story I told you, every lesson I taught you, it all came from him. I wish I could have known him. You do know him. You know him better than most people who met him in person." Elena smiled. "He's in your eyes, your stubbornness, your fierce protective love for the people around you. He's in everything you do." Grace knelt and placed her hand on the headstone. "Hi, Grandpa. I'm 18 today. Mama says that's when everything changes." Elena watched her daughter, this brilliant young woman who had grown up understanding things most people never learned. "I'm going to Harvard tomorrow. I'm going to study social work like Mama. I'm going to help people just like the foundation does. Just like you always wanted." A breeze stirred the yellow roses they had brought, making them sway gently. "I promise I'll make you proud. I promise I'll remember everything you taught Mama, everything she taught me. Character over cash. Love over luxury. A good heart is the only treasure." Grace stood and turned to Elena, tears streaming down her face. "I feel him, Mama. I feel him here." "I know, baby. I feel him too." They held each other for a long moment, mother and daughter united by the love of a man who had given up everything so they could have everything. Then they walked out of the cemetery together, ready for whatever came next. Elena drove home alone, thinking about everything that had happened, everything that had changed, everything that had stayed the same. She thought about Derek, who had remarried 2 years ago, a quiet woman who seemed to genuinely love him. He was still part of Grace's life, still showing up, still trying. She thought about Sophia, who had rebuilt her career in Boston and never returned to Chicago. They hadn't spoken in 18 years, and Elena was fine with that. She thought about the foundation which had helped over 200,000 women and was still growing. Every day more letters came in, more stories of lives transformed, more proof that love was stronger than loss. And she thought about her father, William Thornton, William Hartwell III, Daddy, the man who had given up billions to marry a woman he loved, the man who had mopped floors for 35 years so his daughter would know the value of honest work, the man who had protected her from beyond the grave, planning everything, anticipating everything, loving her with every breath he took. "Thank you, Daddy," she whispered into the empty car. "Thank you for seeing who I really was when I couldn't see it myself. Thank you for believing in me when no one else did. Thank you for building a life so full of love that it's still growing 18 years after you left." She pulled into her driveway and sat there for a moment looking at the house she had built. Not a mansion, not an estate, just a comfortable home where a family had lived and loved and grown. Grace's drawings still covered the refrigerator inside. William's jacket still hung in the closet. Yellow roses still bloomed in the garden, planted the year after his death, thriving ever since. Elena got out of the car and walked inside, ready for the next chapter. She didn't know what it would bring. She never did. But she knew she would face it the same way she had faced everything else, with the strength her father had given her, with the love her mother had died for, with the fierce, unstoppable determination that had carried her through loss and betrayal and heartbreak. She was never alone. She was never poor. She was never powerless. William had made sure of that. And now his legacy lived on. In the foundation. In his granddaughter. In every life that had been touched by the quiet generosity of a janitor who had secretly been a king. Elena sat down at her kitchen table, poured herself a cup of coffee, and opened the folder of new grant applications. 200 women waiting for help. 200 stories of struggle and hope. 200 chances to change the world one life at a time. She picked up her pen and got to work. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning. And somewhere watching from wherever love goes when it leaves this world. William Thornton smiled. His baby girl had risen, just like he knew she would, and the world was better for it. So if you've ever felt abandoned, betrayed, or told you weren't enough, remember Elena's story. Remember that the people who walk away are sometimes making room for something better. Remember that your worth isn't determined by how others treat you, but by how you treat yourself. And remember that somewhere someone loves you more than all the money in the world. Someone believes in you even when you don't believe in yourself. Someone is watching over you, protecting you, preparing a future you can't yet imagine. You are never alone. You are never poor. You are never powerless. Trust the plan. Rise when you're ready. And never forget that the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well. It's building something beautiful. It's becoming so magnificent that your enemies destroy themselves watching you succeed. That's the real legacy, not the billions, not the foundation, not the story that will be told for generations. The legacy is love. Pure, fierce, unstoppable love. And love, my friends, is the only thing that lasts forever. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of your own strength, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below and tell me. Where are you watching from? What's your city? Let me see how far Elena's story has traveled. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because there are more stories coming. More tales of redemption and justice and love that conquers all. This is just the beginning. And the best I promise you is yet to come.